Welcome back to the Weekly Pass with my co-host Hollie Huggins, and we're joined by a good friend of mine, Jeff Garcia. 17 years professionally. He started in Canada, which I always love. That some people don't talk about that, Jeff. That you started in Canada, got the Grey Cup, MVP, did so much in the NFL, and I don't think people talk enough about Jeff Garcia. You were a beast. I mean, the way that you were able to stay in the league for so long, stay healthy, what you established, and then I always think about 2003. I mean, I think it's still the record, Jeff, where you came back. There was 4 minutes to go, 38-14, biggest comeback still in NFC history in the playoffs. So much that you did, and we're just happy to have you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on with you ladies and talk a little football and talk a little bit about life. So hit it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
Hey, fantasy fans! Check out our newest bomb, made with White Claw and Svedka Cherry Limeade Vodka. We serve it ice cold, alongside a can of White Claw Black Cherry Hard Seltzer. We call it the Cherry Limeade Bomb. Let's go!
So, Jeff, of course, you know, the fact that you played for the Lions and the 49ers, obviously the Niners are my team. What are you thinking going into this weekend? It's a huge weekend. There's so much Brock Purdy hate, and I don't get where it comes from. He's such a good kid. I mean, and you kind of know how that is sometimes to be, he was someone that's, Mr. Irrelevant, but he's a good guy. He doesn't talk a lot. He's been able to get us to the NFC Championship games 2 years in a row. What is it that people don't like about Brock?
Well, they want to really take away what he's achieved from the standpoint of the excellence that he has played at, the level that he has played at. And they want to compare him to the other quarterbacks in the league, especially the ones that are remaining in the playoffs. Hey, first round draft picks, high top picks in their draft classes. But that being said, Brock is the perfect fit for what Kyle Shanahan likes to do. He manages the system so well. He's, for the most part, a very good decision maker. He throws an accurate ball. His timing is precise. He gives his playmakers opportunities to make plays. And that's what a good quarterback does, just like a good point guard on the basketball court. You have to manage the game. You have to run the offense. You have to be precise in how you run it and execute it and get your playmakers involved. And yes, he's fortunate to have great playmakers around him with CMC and Kittle and Debo and Ayuk and all the guys. But every team has weapons at their disposal. This is the NFL. Every team is supposed to have the best of the best at each position on the field. So for people to say, well, he's surrounded by greatness, well, you know what? He makes everybody else great by how he runs the offense as well. Just like they make him look great by making plays out there on the field. But if you look at his accuracy, guys aren't going out there and making unbelievable catches, unbelievable plays. He's putting the ball where it needs to be put and allowing players to now catch the ball in stride, catch the ball where they have an opportunity to make yards after the catch. I think it's just one of those things. If you put Lamar Jackson in Kyle Shanahan's system, I think it takes away from what Kyle wants to do as an offense and what Lamar maybe brings to the table. He's not really suited to run that style of offense. So I don't think Lamar would be as successful as Brock is succeeding in Kyle's system. And so for each guy, hey, their coaches, their systems have been designed and somewhat built and orchestrated around the talent that they have. And hey, Lamar has had an outstanding year, MVP candidate, all those things. He's a great player, but he runs a system differently than how Brock runs a system. I'm more the style of probably how Brock plays the game. Hey, it's about timing. It's about execution. It's reading, get the ball out of your hand. You're not going to hold it for long. Hey, when you have a chance to extend a play, he does a great job. He's savvy. He creates when he has to, but he's not reliant upon it.
Right. Now, I'm sure you watched the game. There's a lot of scrutiny that he didn't play well against the Ravens. He didn't play well against the Packers. And then some people say, no, Shanahan got outcoached. So when you look at the game, you were an analyst for a long time. Jeff, what did you see from that win, that close win?
Well, first of all, prior to the game, you have to look at what leads into game day, okay? When you look at the 49ers, they clinched their division. They clinched the number 1 seed with still a game left in the season. So what do? They rest a couple key players. Then they have the bye week. Look, football is a physical game, and it's highly taxing, not just on your body, but on your mind, mentally. When you tell your body, hey, you're going to take a break, you're going to get a week off, you're going to get 2 weeks off, things start to naturally shut down. And we all know when the playoffs start, the speed of the game picks up another notch. These are the best of the best. The elite of all the teams in the National Football League are now coming into the playoff sector. And that's why a team like Green Bay becomes so dangerous, because they're a team that's scratched on their way right to the last game of the season. Mm-hmm. They're playing at a level where they have to find a way to win football games. They go into Dallas, take care of a soft, not mentally ready Dallas team, and show what they're capable of playing with house money. Nobody expected Green Bay to go on the road and do what they did, but they didn't allow that to be pressure on them. They put the pressure on the Cowboys to be, hey, you're the better team. You're supposed to beat us. We're not supposed to win. So they did the same thing going into San Francisco. And when you have some young players, and not to say that he wasn't prepared mentally, but it's a shock to the system when all of a sudden you haven't thrown a live pass in 3 weeks against competition. And all of a sudden, hey, they're coming off the edge at you. They're doing all kinds of different things defensively to disguise and to confuse you. You're just not as sharp as you were 3 weeks prior when you were playing week in and week out. And the Baltimore game, we'll take that as a hiccup. Hey, Baltimore came in and proved that they were the top dog in the National Football League with how they played in that game. But I also think it was an eye-opening experience for the 49ers to see what else is out there, and that, hey, we can't just show up and think we're going to compete. We have to be ready physically and mentally. Well, now you get past that hiccup last week. Brock wasn't as sharp as he's shown throughout the season. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that he hadn't played a game in 3 weeks. And that's why I've always struggled with resting players on the bye week or in the midweek between a regular season game and a playoff game. And I was a subject of that. When I played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we won the division with a few games left in the season. And our second to last game, we had already clinched the division, clinched a home playoff spot. Our second to last game, the week 15 game, was in San Francisco. We come out to San Fran. I play the first half of the game. I throw for 2 touchdowns, 200 plus yards, passing. We're winning the game. And then at halftime, Gruden sits about a dozen players. We end up losing that game. We come home the next week. At home, we were, I think, 7-0 or 6-1 at home that season, and we play a bad Carolina team with Vinny Testaverde starting at 45 years old.
I remember that.
So about a dozen of us, again, older vets, starters, don't even dress for the game. We're in sweats on the sideline. So we don't warm up. We don't do any of those things. We sit for the game. We lose to the Carolina Panthers in the last game of the season. Now, not that it's to affect things mentally. And just having those week and a half off prior to our home game, which was against the New York Giants, who were scratching and clawing their way into the playoffs and had to win their last 4 or 5 games of the season, but hit stride at the perfect time. They come into Tampa on our playoff game, home game, and we don't show up like we are capable of, and we get beat. Now, New York ends up winning the Super Bowl that year, beating New England, but still, we were a better team than what we showed on that day. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we hadn't played together as a team for over 2 weeks, and it makes a difference. That being said, hey, they got that rush shaken off. now Detroit. And not many people remember me playing for Detroit. Hell, sometimes I want to forget that I played for Detroit. But that being said, I made the decision to go and join Mariucci and all the former Niner coaches that were there in Detroit in 2005, and I was there. I love that Detroit is still in it, because those fans, as you see in watching games, I mean, it means something to them. They have been waiting for decades for something like this to cheer for. So it's a great story. I think, hey, Campbell has done an awesome job of redirecting that franchise and getting those players to play for him. And hey, you got a local boy in Jared Goff who grew up right there in Marin County coming home. So it should be an exciting game. I think the 49ers will definitely be better than they were last week and more prepared in the sense of what they're about to see.
Yeah, before I toss it to Holly, so anything throwing the wet ball, was that any concern, you think, for Purdy?
I mean, it definitely makes a difference. I'm glad he dropped the glove, because when you're not used to practicing with the glove, playing with the glove, and oftentimes I don't know if glove really helps in the rain as it is. I know the refs try to, hey, swap out the balls, try to keep the balls dry, but you're going to get some wetness on it. I mean, it makes a difference as to how you can grip it. I mean, he made, you know what? It wasn't so much how he threw the ball. There were a couple of decisions where he got away with potential interceptions, you know, and that was the main thing. I think just being able to see that he wasn't seeing the field like he needed to see the field, and he got away with a couple poor decisions that fortunately didn't cost the team.
Yeah.
Jeff, what's going to be the key to stopping Jared Goff this weekend?
Well, I think pass rush, obviously. Hey, you got to get those front four to put some pressure on Jared. Move him off his spot. He's not a guy that he's athletic enough to do with the ball. It's not to say that he can't run with football, but that's not his thing. He's not trying to get outside the pocket. He's not trying to scramble and make plays. You got to get him off his mark. Make him feel uncomfortable. You got to hit him in the chin a few times. And those are the type of things that, if from a physicality standpoint, if you can do that, hey, he's a veteran quarterback. The guy has won a lot of football games, whether it was with the Rams or now in Detroit. He's a good football player. But I think you have to create a sense of disturbing the timing. He's a guy who wants to throw on rhythm. He's a smart quarterback. He's going to read defense. He's going to try to throw guys open, disrupt the timing. That means getting your hands on receivers, throwing them off the paths of their route running, and then getting pressure, forcing him to step up in the pocket, forcing him to get off his setup point and go at number 2 or number 3 receiver or running back or tight end, the progression. He's got talent. He's got talented guys to throw to. He's got a heck of a tight end. He's got some good, crafty wide receivers. So the guy's got some people to work with. So it's going to be, a great challenge for the 49er defense. But the 49ers defensively with those linebackers, that D line, creating some pressure, that's going to be the key.
Did you have any concern with the defense last weekend? Because they didn't even generate a single sack with Green Bay last weekend. Do you have concerns there?
I mean, I think you have to look at, first of all, I think Green Bay did an excellent job in the 2 weeks that they faced two really good pass rushing teams in Dallas and then coming to San Francisco. But secondly, if you're not getting it done with your front four, then you need to fabricate some pressure. You need to fabricate some DBs off the edge, some linebacker pressures up the gut, some things that sometimes Wilkes, the D coordinator, doesn't want to go to. And you can't be stubborn in that sort of way. You have to be creative at times when the front four are not getting it done. Then you better create an extra edge rusher, 5-6 guys going at the quarterback. I mean, that's just, I think, one of the things that previous defensive coordinators for the Niners have been really good at, creating pressure. And as much as we want to look at, well, they're built with guys that should be able to put pressure themselves. Well, they're going to coach. Teams are smart too. They're going to find ways to, hey, they're going to chip with an extra guy on the edge to slow Bosa down. They're going to double up on an inside guy, maybe Armstead. They're going to do things to where they're going to try to create that little extra time. I mean, a couple of weeks ago when Detroit played the Rams, they had 2, maybe 3 guys on Aaron Donald at times. He didn't sniff the backfield for the most part. So, they have to do some things where it's not just, hey, brawn versus brain, where we're going to just line up and, hey, we're going to bring our 4 best players and wreak havoc. Sometimes your 4 best need to be helped out by 1 or 2 more. And you got to take those chances in key situations to create that sudden change or that turnover or that sack that gets them punting the ball and the field position change and all those things necessary for a defense to get off the field.
Is there a concern, Jeff, that the Lions do not play well on the road and they don't play well on the grass? So they're going to be facing both of that in San Francisco. Does that come into play, you think, in the playoffs? Or are they this team, the Cinderella team, that it's, the stars are aligning?
Yeah, I don't think players are thinking that way. I don't think a player from the Niners is thinking, well, they're coming to our place. They're playing on grass. They haven't proved to be very good in those sort of situations. But I think right now Detroit is playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing again with, hey, they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So they're a dangerous football team when you have that sort of mindset, because you're not so much concerned about every single play. You're just out there doing what you enjoy doing and trying to do it to your best. But if you make a mistake, they're not going to worry about it. They're going to move on from it. And that's where sometimes I think, especially when you look at last week's game, the 49ers got a little tight in how they were feeling and how they were not controlling the tempo of the game. And it showed, and hopefully they come out a little bit looser this weekend with the feeling of playing like they're capable of playing, flying around, being energetic, playing with emotion, those sort of things. Because that's how Detroit's playing right now. They're flying around, and if you're not expecting it, they're going to hit you in the mouth, and they're going to keep hitting you in the mouth. And that's a team that's bringing a blue collar work ethic mentality from their home city. They're carrying all that with them. So,
that's what Campbell said.
They're going to be a challenge.
That's Campbell's motto, right? Just keep hitting them. So you're very opinionated, Jeff. What's your prediction? What's your prediction for this weekend then for both NFC and AFC?
Yeah, hey, I think when you look at the AFC, Baltimore is such a good football team all around. It's going to be interesting to see what Kansas City do offensively against Baltimore. Now, Kansas City's defense has played better this year. I think Patrick Mahomes and that offense has played better over the last couple weeks. They struggled through the regular season, but I think that happens when you're that team that is so used to winning, so used to getting to the Super Bowl. It's difficult to maintain that edge every single week. And I think at times they just played to the level of their competition. Well, now it's a whole different story. They're going into Baltimore. Baltimore is a hell of a football team. And they have a quarterback that's playing at the top of his game right now. They have a running game that can back him. They have, even with guys that aren't necessarily starters or have come off of practice squads and all those things, but they create some balance, and Lamar's legs are a challenge in itself. But that defense of Baltimore is so good. And so when you look at them as being so well-rounded, special teams, defense, and offense, I think Baltimore has the edge. I think it's going to be a good football game, but I think they're going to pull it out, something like a 31-24 type game. There's going to be points on the board, but they're going to have the edge. With San Francisco and Detroit, I do believe San Francisco is just too much of a all-around team with the defense and offense, the ability to run the football, the ability to play action, move, Brock's weapons. I think a big consideration is, where's Debo at? And I haven't read anything. I don't know anything. I don't know what Debo's standing is, but here's my thoughts on Debo. look, I know it's your shoulder, but when you're on the field, you're a difference maker. Whether you touch the ball or not, people are aware of where you're at and what you're doing. And if you're running in motion and they're faking handoffs to you, they're faking screens, they're doing things like that, Detroit is going to be paying attention, and it creates space for other guys. So I'm hoping that he can pull through. But I think, I think the 49ers, again, they're going to rise to the top. Hey, they're going to get to the Super Bowl. And, I think it's going to be a close game as well. I think both these games are going to be great football games. But, I think points are going to be scored again. I think it's going to be one of those 34-24 type games. So we'll see what happens. I'm not one for betting or gambling, but I'm pulling. I think the home teams in both games, just all around as teams, are too much to overcome.
Yeah.
Holly.
Yeah. Well, and Baltimore, they've what was 2013 was the last Super Bowl matchup and they beat the Niners.
With the Niners.
So,
I know.
Yeah. So I want to go back though. I want to talk about last week's game a little bit more. Was there at any point that I've been listening to a lot of people questioning Shanahan's play calling a little bit from last week? Did you have any concerns with some of the calls that he made last week?
Well, I think there are times when Kyle will get away from the run game, and he starts to lean on the passing game, even though he relies heavily on the screen game, which is somewhat of an extension of the running game. But all of a sudden you don't have Debo in there. So you don't have your normal go-to guy for the quick screens, the sweep plays. I mean, obviously people are questioning Kyle, I think, when they saw the first play of the second half, and you have a player in at what normally would be Debo's position, and you still go through with it and run a play that's meant for Debo, not for, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, not for him. It was not for him. And we saw it was like a 3 or 4 yard loss. But then you get into that second half and, you're not being as productive. Hey, it's a nasty weather game, but you kind of start to get away from the run game at times when, hey, CMC is your guy. He's your strength in so many ways. And what he does with the ball in his hands is so special that you cannot not go there at least once every 3 snaps of the ball. And anytime you start going into 4, 5, 6 passes in a row and abandoning that run game or abandoning CMC, I mean, I think that's where people start to question, was he out coached? Did he get out of his, game plan? And, it's a feel. It's a feel as a coach on the sideline. It's really a feel. But I think one of the things that I think I would question at times is that he does get away from trying to run the football and wants to get that either quick strike or that big play. Maybe it's not happening. And so people start to question that. At the end of the day, he's a heck of a coach. He's done a great job with the 49ers. He does a great job of creating deception and matchup opportunities for his team on the field. And so, it's a tough job to be a play caller. And I would like to see many of those people who question play calling try to design an offensive scheme against a defense and within 15 seconds make a play call that gives you a chance to have success on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, we only have a couple more minutes with you, but I do have to ask you, Harbaugh. So he wins a natty in Michigan, and now I believe you're still in the San Diego area now. He's with the Chargers, Los Angeles, I should say. But what are your thoughts on Harbaugh going to the Chargers?
That's an amazing pickup for the Chargers. I think what he brings from the standpoint of experience, first and foremost, being a former player, he's very hard-nosed, disciplinarian. I think he's going to get guys. You're either going to believe in him and jump on board, or he's going to weed you out. He's not going to allow anybody to straddle the fence, so to speak. And that's going to go for the owners too. I mean, you're talking about a major ego, a major ego coming into the building that has proven to be successful at the collegiate level, at the professional level. I think he'll do a great job of getting that team headed in the right direction. It's just a matter of how much aid or help new GM. I'm not sure who they've hired or if they've hired somebody as GM, and the ownership will be willing to give him. Hey, they have a quarterback already in the room.
Oh yeah.
They have some good players. They have some good players on that ball club, but they've been so inconsistent, so underachieving over the last few years. Their coach the last couple seasons made the worst decisions on the field at times, with going for it on 4th downs, on 2-point conversions, all the things that cost them games that I would just question as a fan watching the game. And so I think you're going to get a guy just like he was with the 49ers. I mean, he's going to nip any sort of discrepancies in the tail right away. He's going to get people to believe in his culture and what he expects out of them. And if you don't, then he's going to weed you out, and he's going to turn the page onto somebody new who will step in and do that job. But I think it's a great addition for the Chargers.
But Jeff, you hear some of the players, I talked to some of the players who are under Harbaugh, and they said they didn't like some of his coaching antics. Does sometimes the way his hard nose, does it not translate well sometimes to the NFL from college? I mean, you're an old school type of player, but some of these guys, I mean, they're a little bit bitchy sometimes, right? They're a little soft. They're soft. I'm sorry, I was going to say it. Sometimes they're soft. They don't like the two-a-days. They don't like the hard work. So, I mean, could that backfire?
The little prima donnas are kind of stepping out and talking. Well, here's the thing. Look, the NFL has curtailed a lot of the difficult stuff, or taken away a lot of the difficult stuff from coaches to be able to do. You know, if he has an expectation of, hey, it's our off-season program, I expect you to be there. Well, that is because he's trying to build a team and bring a team together as a family. There aren't the consecutive double days anymore. There's a lot less days in pads. There's a lot less, toughness being handed out by coaches. I mean, what they're able to do at the collegiate level as compared to the professional level is probably black and white in so many ways. I mean, if anybody has seen some of the stuff that Urban Meyer was doing down at Florida with those players, or Ohio State, or what some of these coaches do with the workouts that they put together for these young kids. But you know what? They're creating toughness. They're creating a sense of bonding and support for each other. And they're kind of kicking the selfishness out of them. Yes, it's different when you get into the NFL and you have guys that are making 40 to 50 million a year, making 4, 5, 6 times what a coach ever make in a season. And just the mentality changes, and you don't have the closeness amongst players like you do in a college locker room. It's just different, right? It's become now a business, and guys are doing different things at the end of the day. Some guys have families and 3, 4, 5 kids. Other guys are young and, hey, wanting to hit the street and have fun and all those things. But, there's a fine line. And I've heard the same things. I've heard there are certain things about Harbaugh that rub people wrong. And I've never really been around Harbaugh. I was at one 49er game. It was a preseason game where they had me as the honorary captain on the field prior to the game. And they were going on. It was the last year that the Niners played in the stick. Okay. So they were reminiscing the 9 greatest Niner games at the stick, and my game was number 9 or whatever, so it fell in a preseason game with the giant comeback. So I was on the field, and you would think Harbaugh would at least say hello or something like that. It's a preseason game. I mean, he didn't even look at me or budge or whatever, no. And so I was like, but that's just, hey, I get it too. It's a game, and he's getting prepared for the game. But you think, hey, we're fellow quarterbacks of the National Football League. There's a little bit of a bond there, But That being said, I used to hear of some of the struggles that whether it be players or the GM and Harbaugh, how they used to butt heads because of just different mentalities. But you know what? The 49ers during his time went from a team of 8, 9, 10 years of losing after the early 2000s when we left.
You were there.
In 2003. That was the last playoff season going into 2003. They hadn't made the playoffs until Harbaugh got there and turned things around. So there's something to be said for, hey, guys may not like his approach all the time or his mentality, but he knows how to win. He knows how to apply things on the field. But you also saw, the shoulder collision with the coach from Detroit. That
Yeah,
one
I
year.
remember all that.
He knew those things, you know. Maybe he thinks he still can play at times.
Yeah. He's intense. You know that. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. It's always great to talk to you. And, I always love, I don't care what anyone says, Jeff. You've always respected women in sports. You've always respected me in sports. And I don't care what anyone says. You've always been great. So hopefully you get back in there being an analyst because you're really good. So that's got to end it with that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bonnie, Jill, and Holly. Nice to see you ladies and have a great time. And maybe we'll see you in Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll be there. Jeff, you're going to be there, right?
I'll be there. Yep.
Okay, good. All right. See ya. Thanks, my friend.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
In the mood for something nostalgic? Try our deliciously spiked take on this classic staple. Our new spiked cherry cola blends the flavors of premium Maker's Mark bourbon, made with red winter wheat instead of the usual rye. Have you ordered one yet?